Got me for this one. All right. Thank you so much for coming out this evening. My name is Eric Davis. I'm thrilled to be here for this film. This is one of my favorite films of the year. And you know, earlier this year, Steven Spielberg said of Dune and Dune Part 2 director Denis Villeneuve that he was one of the great world builders in cinema history, which is high praise from Mr. Spielberg, but it's hard to disagree. When you watch a film like Dune, and especially Dune Part 2, it is just next level filmmaking, it is next level artistry, it is next level cinema, period. It is big, bold, beautiful, breathtaking, thought-provoking, thrilling entertainment. And when it comes to Dune Part 2, it is the most immersive cinematic experience that I have had in a theater this year. And I am thrilled that we have Denis and some of the cast here for a little conversation this evening. So let me bring them out now, beginning with, as Fade Rotha, Austin Butler. As Chani, Zendaya. As Paul Atreides, Timothée Chalamet. The co-writer, producer, and director of Dune and Dune Part 2, the great Denis Villeneuve.
Thank you.
All right, where do we dive in here? Denis, you know...
with the introduction you gave, I mean, it's almost embarrassing to be... Timothée said, I wish we were musicians. At least you don't have to talk, you just play the guitar, and then...
You know, let's start... I mean, so many people said Dune was unadaptable. You know, and here we sit here now after you've completed your big screen adaptation of Frank Herbert's novel. If you can go back to the moment you decided to take this project on, what convinced you that you could execute these two films in this way when so many people said, not that it couldn't be done, but that it couldn't be done right, like couldn't be done this way?
It's just, maybe I have something missing in me, a lack of fear, I don't know, but it's just that there's like, I was convinced that there was an angle to approach this novel, that it was doable. I was like, I had seen the movie in my mind as I was reading the book as a kid, and I was obsessed with those images. And I had not seen those images on screen yet, and I was convinced that someone else will do it one day. David Lynch tried it, and it was a movie it was a very interesting movie. There was great things in it, but it was not the Dune I had dreamed about. And I was absolutely convinced that somebody else will do it, and nobody did. And at one point, I had an opportunity, and I felt ready. I always done projects in my life, trying to not do too much steps in between each project prepping me for the next one in some ways. So that's how I feel. I felt I was ready. Voilà.
You know, Timothée, you've been on this journey with Denis for these two films, and in fact, this was your first time returning to a film set to play a character for a second time. And I feel like if Dune is you kind of dipping your toes in the water and getting to know Paul, Dune Part 2 is you diving into the deep end, very much so. Can you talk about the journey and the challenges of playing Paul in the second film and portraying a man who's kind of stuck between, you know, what he wants to do and what he needs to do?
Yeah, I think the first movie is sort of laying the foundation for what's to come in the second movie. The first movie is very much a young man who's literally sheltered and living a royal lifestyle behind walls. And the second movie, as you said, is not only becoming a man and an adult, but also taking on a leadership role and not shying from destiny, even if it's a destiny you don't necessarily want to embrace and everything that comes with it. losing those close to you, losing Johnny. No spoilers, but I guess everybody just watched it.
Yeah, you can spoil, it's all right.
It's been out for like 6 months or a year.
Zendaya, Chani's very much Paul's counterpart in this film. What I love about your performance in this film is that it's so expressive. Chani's a warrior. She isn't afraid to stand up for what she believes and who she believes in. There's so many quiet moments in this film where everything you need to know about what she's going through is on her face and in her eyes. And, talk about the conversations that maybe you had with Denis in terms of, portraying the layers of Chani throughout this film. Because I know in the first one you were there for a hot minute, but this one is all
real hot minute. I honestly, I felt incredibly grateful that I got the opportunity to come back and do it again and have more time with all these people, because I did have such a beautiful time the first time around. It was literally a week of work, and it was like one of the best weeks ever. And I felt so welcome and safe, and I just got a taste of what it was like to work with Denis, to work with everyone, and I was like, I want to do that again. We had a lot of fun. And, this time around, again, I think at the heart of it, there is a love story. And it was like, with all these massive, massive stakes, the amount of weight I think these characters are carrying, how do we make sure we still honor a love story and find that? And how are we even gonna find the time to do that? And I think something Denis talked about from the beginning was, he would do this thing like glance passes, and he was like, I just want you guys to look at each other in the scene from like across the way. I might not use it, but I just have it. And it allowed for us to like have these little key kind of touch points in their relationship, that you see it building and you see these little looks between them, and you can really do so much, I think, and say so much with nothing at all. Sometimes words fail and words aren't enough, and I don't know, I really enjoyed kind of finding and building these things out, just in glances and in moments between these two people who I think are ultimately, I don't know, bound together, but like constantly, I don't know, trying to figure it out and debating whether this is the right thing to do or not, and kind of always trying to do the right thing by themselves, but by, I think, the greater good, whether that be Paul, whether it be Chani, they're always internally divided. And I think sometimes words aren't enough to express that. Sometimes it's said through other things. So I appreciated the space to find those moments together. Oh, thanks. I was kind of nervous. We were talking about, like, we haven't done press for this movie in a long time, so we're like, we're rusty, so if we ramble and it's like not the most eloquent, I'm so sorry. But thank you.
No, everything is great. Austin, you've described this role as delicious, which I love, because when I watch it, I'm like, you are eating the whole meal here, man. But Fate is maniacal. He's a madman. He's psychotic. But you find a way. No, but you find a way. It's easy to go over the top with a role like that. It's easy to kind of glance into like Camp Zone. But you find a way to ground him in like a vulnerability, and maybe it's a sexual vulnerability, like they say in this film. But you find a way to kind of ground him so that way he is intimidating and scary and not over the top, even though his actions are over the top. And I'm curious, like, as you were getting ready to take on this role, was there something you watched or something you read or something Denis said that where it just clicked and you're like, I know exactly how to play him?
I mean, it all started with those conversations between myself and Denis, and when you talked about how primal he was, and then I started looking at animals and started thinking about how animals can do incredibly violent things, but they're not viewing it as that they're evil. They can rip another animal apart and not have. It's not like they're the bad guy, in their own mind, and so it was just finding certain keys in. One that Denis told me that I've never talked about that I love was testing the knife on that the girl in the first scene, and Denis said it's like you're testing a pen. for the ink. It's like that's how much you care, and, you know. And just that image, then you just imagine that you're testing a pen on somebody, you know, and little things like that. So then it's not, because I need to know how sharp this knife is, and, you know, so things like that, to where I wasn't viewing. That's when it became fun, you know, or when you know, end somebody else's life, but you see it as you're doing it like you're killing a mosquito or something, you know, and so it's just finding those ways in to where it wasn't me seeing him as evil, and that's when it became very fun, and then it was, I mean, it was really, it was so fun in the beginning part because we didn't know how he would speak or move, or I remember a time where I thought of him more. You know, I thought, wow, is he like a swashbuckler? Is he, you know, does he move very gracefully? And then as we talked more and more, then it became more of like a train moving forward, this brutish strength to him. And then what was really cool to see was the stronger that Faye became, then the stronger that Paul was, you know, in their fight. And then, yeah, it was all the training that we did with the knives as well, and all the time that Timothée and I had to train together. Zendaya there filming the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I want to talk about that scene in a minute, but first, you know, Timothée said something earlier this year, Denis, where he was talking about what it's like to film, you know, Dune and Dune Part 2, and he said that you bring this indie sensibility to big movie making. And so I'm curious about that and how you take, like, you know, the spontaneity, the intimacy, the bold risk-taking of an indie film, and you fold it into this big-budget, blockbuster movie-making film shot entirely on IMAX. Like, can you speak to that a little bit?
Yes, but it's I'm paid for that. I mean, the idea to create around the camera a safe space for my friends. I'm as a director. I can say, look at them. I'm the luckiest one. I mean, I have the chance to work with a fantastic artist, and I'm trying to create a safe space around the camera, like I was doing when I had a smaller crew. I tried to view to keep that spirit, that indie spirit on set, that which is to protect intimacy, and I love to work in silence, and to work with a single camera, and to just, it's the way I work, and I try to bring that into, so it's more like you have that unit around it, it's bigger, there's more space between my car and the camera. I have to walk the more people around, but I'm shielded from that. I'm focusing just around the camera, so yeah. Sorry, my answer is not very interesting, I think.
No, but I mean, Timothée, maybe you can speak to it too in terms of, like, what's that like for you on a set? You know, you've been in indie films, you've been in big blockbusters. You know, what is that experience like on Denis' set? How is it so different?
This feels like a big indie film. I was talking about it with Denis today because in the interim between when we did press for this and in this moment, I guess, I'd gone back and watched Sicario and Prisoners. I was talking about him today. I was just blown away that he has that dual sensibility. You could speak to it, and film professors could speak to it way better than I could. But so when you're on this huge movie like Dune, I feel like Denis somehow has this superpower where he's taking care of these massive set pieces and concepts that are way above our skill level, and otherwise, when it comes time to do an intimate scene between Paul and Chani, or the scene with Christopher Walken and I at the end, there's a real indie sensibility in that, you know, you try different things, you see what works, obviously within the world of Dune and fitting the tone, and also I think it speaks, and I'll be quiet, but it speaks to Denis' passion when I say like an indie sensibility, that it's not like the day ends and he's in his car, you know, going home right away. I mean, he's like living and breathing it. It's part of the gift of shooting these things in Hungary and all over the world where we did. You're not in New York or LA. In other words, you're really sequestered in the environment that you're shooting in with the family that we've created, you know. I don't know if that answers it at all.
Yeah. You know, there's a couple sequences I'd love to touch on. I mean, there's so many amazing sequences in this film I'd love to break down with you. But like Denis, when you have when Paul rides the sandworm for the first time, you have a scene like that on paper. You don't strike me as a man that's scared of a scene, but on paper, was that an intimidating scene in terms of like, how am I going to figure out how to shoot this?
But you know, it's like I had to create the way. I mean, it was described in the book, but you have in the book you have to fill the gap between the words. You know, when you bring a thing like that in the images, I had to develop a lot of part of the techniques. How you jump in a worm, a storyboard. I explained to the crew. I explained how I had a plan how to shoot that. I didn't want to make any compromises. But you know what? The key is to surround yourself with the best. I had fantastic people around me: Greg Fraser, Paul Lambert, Gerd Nevzer. That they are like tremendous artists that helped me to bring my dream to the screen. You know, and it's of course it's scary, but. No, we had the right technique to do it. Yeah, the key for Dune is to use natural light. We use natural light as much as possible every time we could, and Greg was a strong believer in this too, and we didn't compromise on this. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, Zendaya, both you and Timothy ride the sandworm in this film, and you know, there's seeing that scene on paper, there's filming it, and then there's seeing the final product. I mean, what surprised you the most about filming those scenes with the sandworm?
I think, to be honest, I think one thing that I was always so enamored by and with is the set pieces. I think being able to be in these massive, beautiful sets that with such detail. I remember going in like one of the first days into the siege, and like all the little inscriptions that are on the walls, and like they tell the story of, you know, there's so much detail, and it's so delicious, if you will. But it really makes you feel like you're in this, you know, this universe, this world, and it takes away, you know, a lot of the acting, really, because the only thing I have to really not think about is like, wow, this is so cool, and be like, oh yeah, I live here, you know. I have to not be so, you know, surprised and shocked and in awe of it. But it is really quite magical, I think, like you said, surrounding yourself with like these incredible people, but everything from the costumes to the set pieces, like you feel like you are so deeply in this world. And so to me, every day that we got to do these massive sequences in these places, I just was like, I felt very lucky to be surrounded by this artistry from head to toe. You know, these people that are I think just as important to the development of the character of Chani as I am, right? Like it changes the way you walk, it changes the way you talk, it changes the way you feel. So I think being, you know, in love with that, and also just like the amount of preparation. I mean, like the storyboards, like being able to like come into Denis' tent and he's like, okay, so this is what we're doing. You know what I mean? And it's very, you know, there's such, again, care and detail and structure, and you're like, okay, I know what I'm doing. I have a mission. I gotta look cool, like, you know, and you know what the shot's gonna be, and that is so important. So I think the team that is around us, that is working so hard and cares so deeply about what they're creating, makes our job that much more special and easy.
You know, we're going to come to the audience for a couple of questions, but I'd just love to dive into the duel scene, that finale, because all three of you were in it. It is a phenomenal sequence. And Austin, I want to start with you. You know, there's the choreography of that fight, but there's also sort of the performance of it. I mean, you're in front of a group of people. Talk about filming that scene. In a way, did it feel like live theater because you had all of these people watching?
Absolutely. Live theater in front of many of your favorite actors in the world, you know, and your favorite filmmaker, you know. So it was, there was a huge amount of respect that, I mean, I think we kind of talked about this, you know, you're around all these people you respect so much that it imbues you with quite a lot of focus and energy, and we'd done so much preparation beforehand on that when the time came, it it was like a racehorse when they finally release the gates and you can let all that energy out. It was an incredible experience. Timothy worked so hard. It was so cool to get to work with somebody who was such a hard worker.
Yeah. Talk about it, Timothy, because there's an energy in that fight where you can tell like you're just kind of been let loose, and there's that energy. I mean, what from your perspective, what was that?
I was just thinking, why was I shaking my head? He said I worked hard, and I shook my head. Like, why am I disagreeing with him?
With that. Yeah.
But I feel like I agree with everything Austin said. We're acting in front of these heavyweights and present heavyweights and past legends or current legends, and rare to have an action sequence in 2024 that's practical, almost entirely practically shot. In fact, I think it was, and that has like great narrative stakes within the story, and with clear beats within the fight, which is thanks to our fight coordinator Roger Yuan, where you feel Chani tied in or you feel Princess Irulan tied in, so it's not just two guys wailing on each other. And I'm proud of it too. I think it speaks to Denis and Austin that there are genuine, tremendous stakes in that fight. In other words, it doesn't follow this cliche where you go, oh, okay, well, this character's been central to the first movie and to the second movie. He's probably going to win this fight. You somehow believe, oh, he might get his ass kicked, and he takes 2 stabs to the gut, in the chest. So, Zendaya said, this is such a tremendous group effort. We get to sit up here and get the shine in some way. But I wish everyone could see. I mean, you get a sense of it in the credits, how much of a village goes into this, how many people work hard, and give it their all.
And Zendaya, what's so brilliant about your performance, and I feel like there's a stretch at that end of the film where you don't have a line. And it's incredible. And so everything that you're going through, the most devastating part of her story in this film, you don't have a line. And so it's all on the face, which I think is incredible, as well as that last shot. So I'd love to kind of get, how you prepared for that scene and also that last shot. Like, did you know that was going to be the last shot of the film? And just kind of, because that last shot, the whole weight of the story is in your face. And I think it's a phenomenal final shot of the film. And so I just talk about preparing for that and, yeah.
I was quite nervous about that because it was written, and I was like, shit, I better deliver here. But yeah, I mean, I think what's difficult about the character of Chani in general is that she's a warrior, right? She's literally not allowed to cry. I mean, crying is, you don't waste your water on the dead. You don't waste your water. Water is too precious to cry. So it's like, okay, well, how do I emote then? Like, how do I give the feeling? I mean, she's heartbroken, but yet I'm not allowed to like do the thing you would do, is cry. So I think it was just about like, it's like that feeling of like, you feel it and you're just like pushing it down and choking it down, and you won't let yourself feel, which I think any human at some point has done. Like, you just are like, nah, I'm good. And I know I did that many, many times in life. I'm like, I'm good, So I just had to kind of pull that out. And also was like, I think it was like one of the last shots of like, for me at all. So I think it was my final day. So I was already like super emotional anyway, because it was, we were wrapping up, and it was, I just was so grateful for the experience, and it was like all kind of hitting at the same time anyway, so I kind of got to use that. But yeah, I mean, I also jokingly but truthfully, when I was a kid, my first acting performance was as a silkworm in James and the Giant Peach, and I had no lines. Okay. So really, that prepared me, okay? Okay, there's no such thing as small parts, okay? But yeah, I mean, jokingly, but it is true. I think, again, back to the thing of like, there's so much that can be said and done, and so I'm grateful for the space that, Denis allowed for those moments to happen.
No, and it is incredible, and even though you don't have any lines, the whole audience is with you in that scene.
Yeah, but isn't it what we call cinema? I mean, watching someone experience something without words, the words are from another medium. For me, it's like I love to shoot. Sorry, I interrupt you.
No, go.
To see someone listening. I think for me it's fascinating to shoot someone who is listening to somebody else, to see the impact of the words or the action. There's something very cinematic about that. And I was really excited to have that point of view developed at the end through Shani's eyes. Voilà.
That was brilliant. Any questions?
Yeah, I have something I want to say. I would like, before you start your question,
Sorry.
I would like to pay homage to you guys, because it's something that I never mention in any Q&As or press or whatever, is the amount of pressure that Greg Fraser and I put on their shoulders in different ways. I mean, like Austin, at the beginning, when he does the fight, at the beginning, the gladiator fight, we put him in a box to emulate the arena that was like outside, working with it was like 50 degrees Celsius or something like that. We cooked alive in that box, and because I wanted a specific light, and you did it gracefully. The same for Zendaya and Timothée, who were working in the desert, like doing this love scene at a specific time of the day. That we had to do that scene many times at different for different angles, different position on different days, many days to shoot that scene at a specific time because. Greg and I didn't want to compromise on the light, but that means you have to work with incredibly talented actors that will be able to put themselves back into the zone, the emotional zone, you know. Like the opening scene was shot like something like 12 or 14 different locations. So I'm just saying, I just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Because you don't feel it when you watch the movie, but it's crazy what they've done. It's crazy.
No, it is. It's wild. Okay, questions. Yes, sir, in the red shirt. Yes, yeah, yeah.
How did you manage to not get overwhelmed every stage as you were writing and storyboarding and shooting? How did you handle that pressure?
The question is, how did Denis manage to not be overwhelmed throughout this entire process?
I don't allow myself to be overwhelmed, because if I get overwhelmed, the boat will sink. You know, and as a director, I had to. That's part of the job to deal with the pressure, and to. So the key is to sleep well, to find a way to. No, but I developed through the years a capacity to disconnect. I'm serious. You have to sleep well on a movie like that. It's like have good hours and feel fresh every morning and be prepared. I'd say it's like I don't know which director who said never take a camera if you don't know what you are about to say with that camera. So it's like yeah, you have to be well prepared. That's the key. Otherwise, I will be crushed. Yeah, that's.
Yes, right here. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing space with us. I just had a really quick question. It might be silly, but in the world of Dune, there's this language, and I don't know if it's like made up. Obviously, it's like their home language for the people. So I'm curious, as actors and as a director, is this language written as like gibberish in the script, or are there certain cue words that the actors are taught? And then, if it is a made-up language, what is your cue as an actor to continue on with this scene?
It's a great question.
I will say that we hired for part 1 and part 2 a linguist, a guy that specialized in creating new languages, David Peterson, that actually created Chekhov's. C'est-à-dire we had clues in the book, there was like words, and he extended the language, and he created a real syntax, a real vocabulary, and a real way to pronounce. So they went to Chekhov's school, actually. He wrote, he translated the part of the screenplay that I wanted in Chekhov's, and these words were, he was explaining to them how to pronounce. And I was really, there was a dialect coach on set to check the pronunciation. It went to a point where it became mad when I had a great shot, and then Fabien was coming and said, actually, you don't pronounce it exactly correctly. I was like, hey, come on. So they took it so seriously. So seriously, it was beautiful. It was really moving for me. How much all the cast, yeah.
Yeah, no, there was many a time. I love that you have that anecdote where Fabien would give me a note, and I would kind of and then I'd go, wait, but this is made up. What are you saying? You know, like, and whoever did come up with I think it was Fabian's partner, but I was reading somewhere in the New Yorker or something that he actually has made languages for House of the Dragon and other contemporary. He's sort of the go-to linguist who comes up with languages for projects.
I will say too, I don't know if this is true for you, but I did feel like when I was speaking the Chicopsa, I felt more like sometimes speaking in this as Chani, but in English, felt more foreign than speaking like the language. Like sometimes it felt more natural to speak in this language in Chicopsa, because I almost felt like when we were doing our scenes, a thing that we were trying to figure out often was like how do these kids flirt? Like how do these like how does a space warrior like fall in love for the first time? Like what is that conversation like? And honestly, it was difficult to try to figure out how she would speak to him. Whereas in Chicopsa, I felt like I didn't have to think about those things in those moments with Suela, who's amazing, who plays Shishakli. Like it just feels like it's just coming out of her. And whereas when the English, I almost think probably for her too, she's having to focus a bit more. So yeah, I mean, it's beautiful what they created, and yeah, I felt very lucky to have said their creation. I think it helped a lot.
Yeah, and it was precise to a point where even if, for instance, Shani's character says at one point to Javier Bardem's character, she said, "You're crazy," but that's not exactly what she says in Chicopsa. In Chicopsa, the character says, "You're drinking sand." Because a Fremen that will drink sand is insane. So it's all there was inside, embedded, hidden in the language itself, a beautiful poetry, and that I think the amount of work. So they took that very seriously.
Yeah. Also, just last bit, just in regards to the script, it was in English. There was a translation in italics, and that whole big speech, that Chicopsa speech that Paul has. Sort of declaring himself, we shot that in English, right? Yeah. I mean, we shot it in different ways, you know, and the Chicopsa is what landed in the movie, and I was secretly hoping on the day that it was going to land in the movie, because I spent 6 months memorizing it, and I was like, yeah.
That's incredible. Ladies and gentlemen, the name of the film is Dune Part 2.
Thank you very much.
Thank you to Denis, to Timothy, to Zendaya, to Austin Butler. My name is Eric Davis. We'll see you on Arrakis.